Hey everybody, welcome to another tone-based video. I'm your host for this video, Scott Tennant, and today we're going to be going over Etude number 5 by Tennant Sor. Now I say Etude number 5 because it's the fifth study of 20 that Segovia compiled in 1945, taking different studies from different publications of Tennant Sor throughout his life. And he kind of chose 20 of ones that he thought would be best as a set and published them that way. So we fondly referred to them as the 20 Segovia studies, actually, not even Sor. I grew up calling them the 20 Segovia studies, but they're by Tennant Sor. And they work out well. They weren't necessarily meant to be played in concert as a group 1 through 20 in order. They do kind of, I think Segovia did a really good job in picking out studies that focused on certain technical issues. And they are fairly progressive, although he does throw a couple hard ones in the middle of the 20, but regardless. There are a lot of arpeggiated pieces in this set, and we're going to be dealing with number 5, probably the most popular of the whole set. We're going to be talking about tone production, how to separate melody from accompaniment, a couple tricky left-hand things. Anyway, let's get into it. All right, so what makes this piece, I think, special is this haunting melody that Sor gives us here. And frankly, if you did not much with the piece in terms of adding crescendos and that type of thing, if you just played it straight, it would almost play itself. Yeah, as you can see in the music, Segovia puts in some I call it this, some hairpin dynamics up and down. Not much, just enough to be a little bit more expressive with it. But essentially, you can play it as is, and it'll turn out pretty nice. However, because of this haunting melody, we need to bring that out. Now, you'll notice in most cases when the composer wants a voice to come out, the melody, let's say, to come out, those notes will be stems up. And everything else will be pretty much stems down. But the melody will be stems up, and it's very clear here what the melody is. So it's just, we're playing. So etc., etc., go throughout the whole piece. I prefer playing that melody mostly with the M finger. We're also going to be playing it free stroke. When I was a kid, I remember, I think I was probably 13 when I played this in a master class of Illyrio Diaz. And I was just a little punk kid, showed up at the class and kind of knocked this piece out. And he made a comment that I should bring out the thumb. Okay, so he made it sound good. I didn't. I brought the thumb out as he told me to do. And you'll see in the music that both in Sor's and Segovia's edition, this third eighth note, that ostinato bass is stems down, but also a half note, indicating that he certainly wants it held, which is why it's a half note. But bottom line is, I wouldn't suggest accenting that note. It just doesn't sound great. Why Maestro Diaz had me bring that note out, perhaps I wasn't bringing it out enough. But anyway, my point is that he also wanted me to do rest stroke on the top, which I did. I learned it. I went and relearned it with rest stroke on the top, all the melody notes. That just got a little bit too busy. So as I grew up and matured and realized that you could bring out a voice without rest stroke, uh, that opened up a lot of things for me. So we're going to be doing free stroke on the melody. In fact, there's rarely a rest stroke to be found. Once in a while, you'll see me doing a little rest stroke with the thumb, not to bring that note out, but just to kind of rest my thumb. But for our purposes, everything's going to be free stroke. And what I suggest is practicing the melody, but keeping the chord shapes as you practice. So I have the chord down, change chord, and really connect. Don't let the chord changes change the smooth quality of measure to measure. And I just keep on making the chords as if I'm playing them. Okay, so you see what I'm doing there. That also, when we add the left hand like that, isolating a melody, we also find little things along the way as far as left-hand chord changes go. One thing I want to point out, this is throughout the whole piece, but one example is going from measure 2 to 3. We have end of measure 2. He has F sharp D E. This is so close together that it's easy to bring that D out without even knowing it. We want to keep the D below the melody. We want to keep that D in the accompanimental realm. So we're going to consciously play that note back a little bit. Okay, so the success of bringing out a melody is not necessarily playing the melody that much louder. It's bringing everything around it down a notch so that you have this really nice floating, the melody's always here, and whatever we do dynamically, it always kind of goes up and down together, right? So this is a really good study to practice this balance. So let me just play the A section here. Take note of how quiet actually the accompaniment is. So the accompaniment is really pretty quiet. And as I always say, whenever I hear myself on a recording played back, whenever I thought I was playing quiet, it was never quiet enough. So I always think I'm playing quieter than I am. So in terms of this piece, we can practice really, really bringing that accompaniment down. And that in itself is going to bring the melody out. So what you're going to do is just the super slow version. So instead of 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and, we're going to do 6 quarter notes, very slow. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3. So we have plenty of time to make sure we have 2 levels here. We want a lot of space in between the notes. Stay with me. 5, 6. No, I won't continue because it takes a lot of time. However, if you really want to see what I'm doing, you can always back up the video and get a good look. There's not much to see. I'm just digging in a little bit more, pushing in with my fingertip on the melody, and then really laying back. I'm just basically kind of almost like brushing the strings with all the other notes. So what I would do if I were you is I would go over the whole piece like that, the super slow version. I've talked a lot before in videos and in various things I've written about how to produce a tone. Frankly, it's really hard in a video to talk about real specifics, for instance, like nail shape and all that. That's something that's really ideally worked on close up, one-on-one. But I will say that we're working on bringing this. And I prefer, again, in this piece, most of the notes I'm hitting are with the M finger, with the occasional A thrown in. That being the case, I can really dial in my tone production in one finger. And what I like to do is experiment. And I encourage everybody to experiment in terms of angle. So one way I always say to get a immediately rounder tone is to take the finger and angle it a little bit. So instead of playing, like straight on, you can angle the finger a little bit this way. So you're kind of you're slicing the string at an angle. You're getting more nail surface that way. And you're also making sure that you get some fingertip involved. If your nail is so long that you're only hitting the string with the nail and producing tone with the nail alone, your nail is probably a little too long. And I've heard a lot of people get really good tone with all nail, but ultimately you're going to have a lot less tone control, articulation control if you do that, just because your nail has no nerve endings. You really need to feel what's going on with your fingertips. So I suggest kind of experimenting with angle. Now, having said that, the accompaniment. So if we fatten up the tone, louder equals fatter, and softer equals thinner. Let me explain. We're trying to fatten up the tone here. And just doing that alone makes it more audible without even really trying to play louder. Okay, if I were to play on the very tip of my nail, I'm playing with the same force. Then just angling it fattens it up. So that's what we want when we want to bring something out. The accompaniment, I already said we want to keep below. So we have a thick note. Then I do a little bit like this. I go fat note, thin. I'll do a little bit of this just to get an angle. Nothing exaggerated, but I'll get a little fatter tone here by angling. And then on these notes, I just play on the tips of the nail. Okay. What that does is it creates a really clear, a much more crystal clear tone and projection. So when we play like that, when we play a softer note a little thinner and on the tip of our nail, it still carries. If I tried to fatten up a really quiet note, it's not going to carry as well. Up here behind the guitar, we hear it and we think it's carrying. But if we try to play a really quiet note with a rounded tone, it's not going to carry. Rather, if I do this, and I'm playing the same force, hear that? That's kind of wispy. But turn it, tip of the nail, and it's just an immediate difference. So anything we play that's accompaniment or not melody, we're going to play tip of the nail. I'll exaggerate. You see the melody, I turn a bit. This is more than we really want to do. But there's a little bit of that happening. And when you get really good at it, you can just pivot your fingertip and do it. That's how we make the accompaniment heard and still have it be clear and not wispy. So that's something you want to work on. So this being an easier piece to play, we can take advantage of that and work out lots of little details. So we're already talking about tone and right hand articulation, more fingertip, more nail, etc. Left hand plays a big role too. What we need to do as guitarists, a lot of us tend to not finish one measure before we go into the next measure. A lot of it has to do with panic of getting that next chord. And so we tighten up, and we tend to then leave a note early in order to get somewhere else. We can't do that. Okay, again, this is one of those little details that's going to take you from an okay player to an all right player to a good player, a really good player, and a great player. These little details. Think of your favorite player, guitarist that you listen to a lot. They always finish a note. They're never leaving a note early. Sometimes we leave a note so early we don't hit it at all. So we get a lot of this. Or we just hit an open string. I see that a lot with players. They're finishing so early that they'll just hit that open string. And it may not even be in the key that the piece is in. And the funny thing is they really don't notice it. They're so focused on leaving and getting to that next chord or note. We really have to pay attention and finish every note. That's the thing about playing guitar. We think once we pluck the note, it's done. But as guitarists, we think, we're not responsible like a clarinet player or a singer. They have to hold physically with breath. They have to hold the whole note before they play the next note. We should do that, but we tend not to do it because we think the pluck is it. But there's a lot happening after the pluck. You have to hold the note. And it really makes a ton of difference in the final product. Trust me on that. So you want to spend some time making sure that before you change even one finger, that you finish that note. So it takes a lot of practice getting from one note to the next with ease and quickness. But the thing is, we don't want to force the quickness. It's an aim and throw type of thing. You know where the next note is, even if it's on the same fret. You aim and throw it. If you're shifting, you aim and throw it. It's always aim and throw. It's never forced. Take the last two lines of this piece. He's pretty gentle with us at the beginning. We have a lot of common. It just stays here for a while. Okay, so he's pretty easy there, but it gets a little bit more in the weeds after that. So measure 40. We have that C. Now that's a simple shift. We're just going here. However, we have to finish the note. The C sharp. Okay, we have to finish that before we move on. Same here. Finish the last note of the measure. Finish. Finish it. So in a lot of cases like this, you might just want to play the last note and the first note. Play the last note of one bar and play the first note of the next bar, just to see what your fingers are doing, and aim and throw, very smooth connections, but really making sure that you sound each note for its fair and full value. It's going to make you a much better player instantly when you can do that. Trust me.